In this video, we're going to be going over our activities child section page that would be found in Flexible Content Editor. This page might have a different title on your website. It might be things to do or explore, local area guide. Might be being used multiple times to have an activities page, to have an attractions page. It can be used for pretty much any kind of category like that you want. The purpose of the page is to build out kind of like a local area guide kind of catalog, a grid catalog, if you will. So typically you'll probably see your site might be different, but what we see most of the time with this type of content would be activities or local area guide, things to do, something like that. And the grid would be populated with dining, shopping, golf, um, you know, just any kind of outdoor attractions, etc. It really just depends on the market and what kind of attractions and activities and things to do are available, and how much of that information you're wanting to share to your guests on your website. This is going to be kind of the main parent page for how this flexible content section works. It's not really a page that you actually put content on itself. Content pulls to this page by creating other pages for these categories, and then using parent-child logic that will auto feed however many of these sub pages you've created to this kind of like main grid category page. So taking a look at the backend editor of this page, regardless of what it's called on your site, if you're looking at a page that's using this type of feature, going in the back end of the page, it's typically going to be set to full width or boxed banner template. Either one work. Full width is just going to have the grid kind of take up the full screen, and box banner is just going to reduce them in size and put a little margin on the left and right and kind of center them there. But you'll scroll down and you'll find this inside your flexible content editor area of that page. It would be titled Activities Child section. Now this section might be used on other pages as well. We do use this same section for powering the kind of child pages for these as well. And there's just some toggles to basically tell that tool which page, which style are we supposed to be using here. So your main page, that's kind of this grid of thumbnail categories, is going to be set to standard. We do have favorites logic available that is turned on right now for this particular example. Favorites logic is set to yes, and that's going to give you the little heart icons so your guests can kind of favorite the different categories they're interested in, and that would provide them a link to the favorites page where it'll pull those items. If they're all filled out with content on their child pages, it can pull some descriptions, a link to that page, etc. Just kind of creates a favorites page for your things to do kind of categories. And this design might look different all depending on the site, but the general functionality would be the same. So back on the backend editor, the favorites page would have this same flex section added, but set to favorites. And the main category page would always be set to standard. As you'll see here, there's not really any content, right? So this is all getting populated through these call to actions, all linking out to what are called child pages or sub pages, something like this, which we will get into as well. But then there's some options for how those items might load to the page. So let's say I had 9 or 12 categories that I wanted displayed on this page, but for page speed, I didn't want to try to load them all the way. I wanted to kind of present a few categories, and then they can toggle to load more, just as you saw there. That would be the load more button setting. Then there's lazy load and normal. Lazy load is pretty much you're going to display all of the categories that you have upon page load, but they're going to kind of trickle in. They're not just going to try to load them all at once. Load more is really good if you have a lot of categories on this page. If you got 6, 9, something like that, speed wise should be fine. But if you have more than that, you might only want to load a row of 6 or 2 rows of 3, and then a load more button would help for page speed. But then another, if you don't want them to have to click to load more, that is what the lazy load is for. So maybe it'll load 6 right away. I see those 6s and I start to scroll. It'll lazy load in the remaining categories. And then normal is just going to try to attempt to load however many categories you have when that page is called up. Then you have activities display field, which is where you can set the number to display up front if you're using load more or lazy load. And before I click load more, I can refresh the page here. You'll see that it just pulls those 6, and then load more pulls in the remaining categories. And so that's what that field is for. And then use animation, yes or no, that would be set pretty much based on what we did in design, if there's any kind of animation on how they load or if they just kind of show up immediately or not. And then there's a field to control the link of where the favorites page is going to live. So if I clicked on the heart icons and then the favorite activities link to the top right, what is the URL I'm supposed to go to? That is what that field is there for. From there, that's pretty much all of the controls for that main grid page. We'll cover it in a second video for kind of setting up these category pages and your options that you have there. But basically, you have your kind of main category page, and maybe you have multiple category pages on your site that's using this type of page. That page would just need to have the activities child section added to it, and then the option for standard would be set, and then you can choose your image display and activities to display, etc. And then to get stuff to actually populate to that page, you're going to build out a page for each one of these categories, and it's going to be set to have a parent page of whatever this activities page is called on your website, and that'll auto feed the image and the title and a link and create this grid once all of those child or sub pages are created. And we have a video as well for that if you need assistance on creating those subcategory pages.